All right, hey guys. So today we're going to be taking a deeper look into inequalities. So you guys just came, or hopefully maybe came from looking at those single and multi-step equations and how to solve those, as well as how to solve for things with variables on both sides. So the same thing kind of goes into play with inequalities because you're solving it the same way, wanting to isolate your variable. But the difference is that you have this little thing in the middle and it looks not like an equal sign, and that's because it's your inequalities. So your inequalities include anything from less than, greater than, less than and equal to, and greater than and equal to. So when you're looking at this, you're going to be solving it the same way you were solving your regular equations with an equal sign. So I'm going to isolate this 2x because I want to get x by itself. And I know if I subtract 9 from both sides, I'm left with 2x is less than 4. So the important thing to know is that I need to keep this every single time, make sure that I keep it the same way. And then if I divide both sides by 2, because that'll cancel it out, I'm left with x is less than 2. So there are some different rules that come into play when you're dividing with an inequality, but we'll get into that a little more in depth later. So if this is my final expression, I have x is less than 2. If I'm going to graph it, the important thing to know is which circle you're going to use. So when I say circle, that might be a little confusing for some of you. By circle, I'm just going to draw this out, and then when I graph it, it'll make more sense. So pretend these are all the way filled in. Okay, whoops. All right, so when I go to graph x is less than 2, I'm going to go to my little number line, and let's say right here is 2. I'll do this in a different color so you can see better. Since x is less than 2, and it's not less than or equal to or anything, it is just this less than, I'm going to put an open circle at 2. And the open circle means that it does not include 2. It just means that that's your point of reference. And since x is less than, that was not very straight. I know that my line is going to go this way. So just pretend like that's a better line than you see. And just note that since x is less than 2, it's going to be going in the negative direction because it's not going to be on this side because that would be x is greater than 2. And again, it's that open circle because it is just less than. It does not include this value of 2. So let's take a look at some practice problems. You should have a worksheet. It is linked to the website, and you can follow along or you can just take notes on these. Okay, so if I'm looking at these practice problems, I see here that I have my variables already on one side and then my little constant over here. So the first thing I want to do is combine my like terms. So negative 5n plus 2n. I know that negative 5 plus 2 is negative 3n. So now I'm going to be dividing both sides by negative 3. And this is what I was saying earlier about how there's some exceptions, because when I'm looking at this, when you divide by a negative, this is a little confusing and it'll take a while to grasp this concept. But if I divide by a negative, I'm going to flip my inequality. So now over here I have negative 1 equals, or is greater than n. So it's a little confusing to see that you're flipping your inequality. Just know that negative value means you flip the inequality sign. All right, so if I have, technically you could rewrite it as n is less than negative 1, and then I go to my graph. Let's just say this is negative 10, this is 10, and that puts 0 about here. I'm going to go to right about where negative 1 might be. And then we'll do a different color again. So you can go ahead and see that this is just less than. It's not equal to, so it does not include the 1, which means it's an open circle. And because n is less than 1, it is going to be going in this direction. Again, the lines are a little wonky, but you just need to know that you're going in the more negative because n is going to be less than 1. Anything to the right of -1, will be n is greater than, so you want to make sure your arrow is going in the direction of what that inequality includes. All right, so now I'm going to look at number 2 and go ahead and treat this like a typical equation. Only difference is you have this inequality right here. So I see 6x and 6x on the same side, and I know I can combine those like terms to give me 12x plus 2 is less than 14. Then if I subtract 2 from both sides, I get 12x is less than 12. And then divide both sides by 12, and I'm left with x is less than 1. So there was no flipping of the inequality here because there was no dividing by a negative number, and that will just give you your same inequality symbol that was from above. All right, so putting this on a number line now, I have, let's just say 5 and 5 because we don't need to, or 5 and -5, sorry. And here is your 0. So we'll say 1 is about right here. Switch up the color. Let me write the 1. So if I'm looking at this here, again, it's just this. And so I know I start at 1, and since it's just less than, I know it doesn't include 1. So again, that'll be an open circle. And then x is any value that is less than 1. So it's not going to be over here because here you get into the 2, 3, 4, and 5, which you know those numbers are greater than 1. So anything that x falls into being less than 1 would be in this direction, so your arrow is pointing this way. So you just attach that line from your circle and draw the arrow in the direction. We're going to go ahead and skip this third one because it's a lot like 1 and 2. And if you have any questions on that, there is an answer key with the written out work, and you can go ahead and look at that. So the different one here is number 4. If you can't really tell, it's a greater than and equal to sign. So that's a little different than the ones we've been working with. So the first thing I want to do is combine these like terms. I see 5k plus 4k gets me a total of 9k. And then I have 18 is greater than or equal to 9k. So then I know I can divide both sides by 9, and I'm left with 2 is greater than or equal to k. So now I'm going to draw it on my number line just for a good visual. And if my value is 2, we'll say 2 is about right there. We're going to go ahead and start graphing our circles and our lines. So this is where the difference comes into play because instead of having your open circle, now that it's greater than and equal to, you know that it includes that number. So I'm going to do my best to try and draw a good closed circle. Maybe. So my circle would be here, and then I fill it in because it's closed and it's including that value of 2. And then if I rewrote this just so it could be a little easier to see, I have k is less than or equal to 2. So that again means my arrow is going in this direction because it is less than. So the major point here is that you used a closed circle when it's greater than and equal to or less than and equal to because that means you're including that number. And then open circle when it's just less than or greater than. And another focus you want to try to remember, it could be a little confusing, it just takes some practice, is that whenever you divide by a negative, you are flipping that inequality. So I just remember it by like negative. You typically want to flip that to make it positive. So you're just also flipping the inequality. So you can go ahead and continue with the rest of the practice problems. And if there are any troubles, there is a key that has the work all written out for you, and you can follow along with those steps.